When 74-year-old Evelyn Monroe stepped into the gleaming lobby of one of the most prestigious hotels in New York City, she wasn't dressed to impress. Wearing a modest coat and carrying a well-worn handbag, she appeared to be an ordinary elderly woman. But behind her kind eyes and unassuming demeanor was a history of success that had built the very empire she was now walking into. As she shuffled across the polished marble floors, the soft click of her low-heeled shoes barely audible in the grand space, she noticed the subtle glances directed her way. The staff, trained to cater to the wealthy and powerful, barely registered her presence. What they couldn't know was that this quiet woman, seemingly out of place in their world of luxury, was the very person responsible for the existence of the hotel. What happened next shocked everyone. The staff's disrespect would lead to an explosive revelation that would shake the very foundation of their arrogance. The chill of the autumn air clung to Evelyn as she stepped out of the cab in front of the Monroe Regency. The afternoon sun cast a golden hue on the skyscrapers, and the bustle of New York City was alive around her. Taxis honked, street vendors shouted to passers-by, and the faint hum of conversations filled the air. For a moment, Evelyn stood still, taking in the towering building she had dreamed of decades ago. The Monroe Regency wasn't just another hotel in her portfolio. It was the crown jewel of her empire. Located on Fifth Avenue, it catered to the elite, boasting suites that celebrities and world leaders frequented. The design of the hotel, from its sleek glass exterior to its opulent interiors, was a manifestation of Evelyn's vision, a blend of sophistication, comfort, and inclusivity. The hotel's name was a reminder of where she had come from and the barriers she had shattered. As a young black woman navigating the male-dominated world of business in the 1970s, Evelyn had faced endless challenges. From being dismissed in meetings to being denied loans for no other reason than the color of her skin, her journey had been anything but smooth. Yet through grit and determination, she had turned her dream into reality. Today, however, Evelyn wasn't here as the celebrated CEO. She was here as an ordinary guest, blending into the fabric of the hotel to assess its operations. She believed that true leadership required first-hand knowledge, and this was her way of ensuring that the values she had built her company on were upheld. Clutching her leather handbag, worn from years of use but polished to perfection, Evelyn entered the lobby. The grandeur of the space struck her. A massive crystal chandelier sparkled overhead, its light reflecting off the polished marble floors. Guests lounged on velvet chairs, sipping cocktails and laughing, while impeccably dressed staff moved with precision, their every action exuding professionalism. Yet, as Evelyn approached the concierge desk, she felt the weight of judgment in the eyes of the young man standing there. His name tag read Andrew. His suit was perfectly tailored, and his smile was practiced, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, his tone polite but edged with condescension. His gaze swept over her modest coat and sensible shoes, and Evelyn could almost hear his unspoken thoughts. "She doesn't belong here." "Yes," Evelyn replied, her voice calm but firm. "I'd like to book a room." Andrew's smile widened, though it seemed more mocking than welcoming. "This is a premium hotel," he said, leaning slightly closer as if to emphasize his point. "Rooms here start at $1,200 a night. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere. More affordable." Evelyn's lips tightened into a thin line, but she maintained her composure. Years of navigating dismissive attitudes had taught her the power of silence and restraint. "I'm aware of the prices," she said. "Please check for availability." Andrew hesitated for a moment, as though weighing whether it was worth the effort. With a sigh, he turned to his computer, his fingers moving languidly over the keyboard. Behind him, two other staff members whispered, their muffled laughter reaching Evelyn's ears. Words like "wrong place" and "can't afford it" pricked at her, but she stood tall, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. After what felt like an eternity, Andrew looked up. "We do have a room available," he said, his tone suggesting it was a pity. "It's one of our entry-level suites, nothing fancy." "That will do," Evelyn replied, pulling out a sleek black credit card. The sight of the Centurion American Express made Andrew pause for a fraction of a second, but he quickly recovered, processing the payment without acknowledgement. As he handed her the key card, his smirk returned. "Enjoy your stay." Evelyn walked away, her heart heavy but her resolve intact. She wasn't here to be treated like royalty. She was here to see the truth, and she had already seen more than enough. The suite was exquisite. Its design a perfect blend of modern elegance and comfort. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Central Park, and the room was filled with luxurious touches. A plush king-sized bed, a marble bathroom stocked with premium toiletries, and a tray of artisanal chocolates waiting on the table. Yet, Evelyn barely noticed. The sting of her encounter with the concierge lingered. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she allowed herself a moment to reflect. This wasn't the first time she had been underestimated, nor would it be the last. But this time, it was different. This was her hotel, her creation, her legacy, and she refused to let it be tarnished. Opening her laptop, Evelyn logged into the hotel's internal systems. As the CEO, she had access to everything, from guest reviews to employee records. Her fingers moved deftly over the keyboard as she pored over data, looking for patterns. The picture that emerged was troubling. Complaints from minority guests often went unresolved, while employee surveys hinted at a culture of favoritism and subtle discrimination. One review in particular caught her attention. "Beautiful hotel, but the staff made me feel like I didn't belong. Won't be returning." It was signed by a guest named Mrs. Thompson, who described an eerily similar experience to what Evelyn had just endured. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was Marcus, her trusted assistant. "Ms. Monroe, do you need anything?" "Yes, Marcus," she said. "I need you to prepare the board for an emergency meeting, and send me the personnel files for the front desk and restaurant staff." Marcus hesitated. "Is everything okay?" "It will be," Evelyn replied, "but not before I make some changes." Later that evening, Evelyn decided to dine at the hotel's acclaimed restaurant, the Regency Room. Known for its Michelin-starred chef and exquisite menu, it was one of the main attractions for guests. Dressed in the same modest attire, Evelyn approached the maître d'. His name tag read Scott, and his demeanor was as polished as his appearance. "Do you have a reservation?" he asked, his tone polite but devoid of warmth. "No," Evelyn replied, "but I'm staying here and hoped you could accommodate me." Scott glanced at his tablet, then at Evelyn. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we're fully booked tonight." Evelyn's eyes scanned the room. While many tables were occupied, several remained empty, their pristine white linens untouched. She looked back at Scott, who now seemed more interested in the couple approaching behind her, a well-dressed white man and woman. "Can we get a table?" the man asked, flashing a charming smile. "Of course," Scott said, his tone transforming instantly. "Right this way." Evelyn stepped aside, watching as the couple was seated at one of the prime tables by the window. Her chest tightened with a familiar ache. Decades of breaking barriers hadn't erased the sting of prejudice. "Excuse me," she said, returning to Scott. "Are you sure there isn't a table available?" Scott sighed, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Fine," he said, "but it's not one of our better seats." He led her to a small table near the kitchen doors, far from the ambiance of the main dining area. The clatter of dishes and the buzz of kitchen staff surrounded her. Guests glanced her way, their expressions a mix of curiosity and pity. Evelyn ordered a simple meal, her appetite diminished. As she ate, she couldn't help but think of the countless other guests who had likely endured similar treatment. Evelyn returned to her suite late that evening, her modest meal leaving a bitter aftertaste, not because of the food, which had been as exquisite as advertised, but because of the pervasive discrimination she had faced. The subtle yet clear message from the staff echoed in her mind. "You don't belong here." Seated by the large window overlooking Central Park, Evelyn let her thoughts wander. The shimmering city lights contrasted sharply with the darkness she felt within. It wasn't the first time she had faced this kind of treatment, but experiencing it in a place she had built was particularly painful. Her mind drifted back to her early days in Atlanta. She had been a young single mother working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Racism and sexism weren't just obstacles, they were daily realities. Back then, she had sworn to herself that if she ever succeeded, she would create spaces where everyone felt welcomed and respected. That promise had driven her to establish the Monroe Hotel Group, but now, it was clear that some of the staff didn't share her vision. What good is an empire if its foundation is cracked, she thought. Her frustration turned to determination. Tomorrow, she would ensure no one else felt the way she had today. She called Marcus again. "I need something from you, Marcus," she said, her voice firm. "I want the personnel records for every staff member who interacted with me today, and schedule a meeting with our diversity and inclusion officer." "Yes, Ms. Monroe," Marcus replied, sensing the urgency in her tone. "And Marcus," she added, "let's keep this quiet for now. I don't want anyone tipped off." The next morning, Evelyn rose early, her resolve as sharp as ever. She began her day by reviewing the personnel records Marcus had sent. Andrew, the concierge, was a recent hire with glowing reviews from his previous employers, but his file lacked any training in diversity or sensitivity. Scott, the maître, had a longer tenure, but had been the subject of several complaints, most notably for dismissive behavior toward guests who didn't fit his perception of high class. Evelyn felt a pang of disappointment. These weren't just employees, they were representatives of her brand, and they had failed her. But rather than dwell on the past, she focused on the solutions ahead. Her assistant called to inform her that the staff meeting was ready in the grand ballroom. Evelyn had requested the entire team to gather, from the front desk workers to the housekeeping staff. Word had spread quickly, and by the time she arrived, the air was thick with curiosity and nervous energy. As Evelyn entered, dressed in an impeccably tailored navy suit, her presence commanded attention. Conversations hushed, and all eyes turned toward her. She walked to the podium, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady and clear. "For those of you who don't know me, I am Evelyn Monroe, the founder and CEO of the Monroe Hotel Group." The announcement sent shockwaves through the room. Gasps filled the air, and several employees exchanged wide-eyed glances. Andrew and Scott, standing toward the back, visibly stiffened. "I visited this hotel yesterday," Evelyn continued. "I came as a guest unannounced to experience what our customers experience. What I encountered was deeply troubling." She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was silent, save for the occasional shuffle of feet or the faint hum of the air conditioning. "Discrimination and disrespect have no place in my hotels," she said firmly. "This is not just a failure of customer service, it is a failure of the values this company was built on." Evelyn's speech continued, outlining the specific behaviors she had witnessed and calling out the culture of bias that had taken root in the hotel. Without naming names, she described the incidents involving Andrew and Scott, their faces turning pale as they realized the severity of the situation. "As of today," Evelyn announced, "we are implementing new policies to ensure this never happens again. Mandatory diversity and sensitivity training will be required for all staff. We will also establish an anonymous reporting system for guests and employees to voice concerns without fear of retaliation." The crowd began murmuring, a mix of relief and unease spreading through the room. Evelyn wasn't finished. "Furthermore, there will be consequences for those who fail to uphold our standards," she said, her gaze sweeping the room. "Effective immediately, several employees will be terminated." The murmurs grew louder as Andrew and Scott exchanged panicked looks. Evelyn's assistant stepped forward, handing her a clipboard. She read the names of those being dismissed, her voice unwavering. Among them were Andrew and Scott. "I do not take these decisions lightly," Evelyn said. "But as leaders, we must be accountable for our actions and inactions." After the meeting, Evelyn stayed to speak with the remaining staff. She assured them that her goal was not to punish but to create a better environment for everyone. Many employees, particularly those from minority backgrounds, approached her to share their experiences. Some thanked her for addressing issues they had long felt powerless to change. Evelyn spent the rest of the day working with the new leadership team she had appointed. The new general manager, a longtime employee named Carla, was known for her fairness and commitment to inclusivity. Together, they outlined a plan to rebuild trust with the staff and guests. That evening, Evelyn dined in the restaurant again, this time seated at the best table in the house. The staff, now aware of her identity, treated her with the utmost respect. But Evelyn made it clear to Carla that she didn't want this deference reserved for her alone. "True change," Evelyn said, "isn't about how they treat me. It's about how they treat everyone." As Evelyn left the hotel the following day, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The experience had been painful but necessary. It reminded her why she had built her empire: to create spaces where everyone, regardless of race or background, could feel valued. Word of her visit spread quickly. News outlets picked up the story, lauding Evelyn's commitment to justice and equality. Guests who had previously felt marginalized returned, praising the changes they saw. For Evelyn, this was more than just a business victory. It was a personal one. She had faced prejudice, fought back with grace, and emerged stronger. And in doing so, she had ensured that the Monroe Regency remained not just a hotel, but a beacon of progress.